So, good morning everyone. Yesterday we spoke about basically the deeper concept of there being 10 plagues as the connection between creation, which was in 10 sayings, and the way in which the principles inherent in creation should be put into practice by mankind. So that's why the Torah was given in the desert, which was everyone's land, as it was no man's land, and it was in practice given over to Am Yisrael to be a kingdom of priests. Just as the priest's duty is to represent divine service, transforming the world of nature into an understanding that it's constantly recreated by the power of the Almighty, who has also given human beings the freedom to choose Him and to choose the path that He wishes mankind to follow to preserve their divine image. So this was given over. So the Kohen has this duty with the people of Israel. The people have the duty to set an example and bring a teaching to all the nations of the world. And that's the difference between a mama and a dibur. A dibur is already a precise declaration of what has to be done, whilst amira refers to the concept behind it, explanation of it. So to go from one step to the next, we go via the 10 plagues. In order to understand the 10 plagues more deeply, so Rabbi Yehuda gave the simanim, the tzach, adash, v'achab. In other words, divided into 3 groups. 3 and 3, and the last section is 3 plus 1, the makat b'chorot, which was already mentioned right at the start. The b'chor is the one who's going to pass things on from one generation to the next in the family. And also in the family of all the nations, all children of God. So the people of Israel are the first ones who declared the fatherhood of God, which brings about, it's called the family of the nations. So the tzach v'adash v'achav, let us start following through according to the chart which he made here. And if one analyzes the pesukim concerning the 10 plagues, we see that we're going to follow now the headings that we put at the top. If we look at the top of the chart, we see that the 3 groups of Yehuda are in the following pattern. The first one in each group is a warning, which was given by Moshe and Aaron to Paro. Then the second one is that when the plague comes, this is the second group of 3. In each of the 3 groups, the second one was a punishment, which also came sometimes with saying what the punishment would be. And then the third one came without warning, no warning at all. So if you look carefully at this chart, I put here the sources, Rabbi Yehuda in Haggadah, who made a threefold division, Sachat Ashpacha. So we find that in the first one, it says either Boel Paro Baboka or Reichel Paro Baboka, or it says Hitchatzev Lefnei Paro. And then we find that this is mentioned, morning is mentioned by Dam, it's mentioned again by Zephadiah, by Dam it's Leichel Paro, go to him, the Nile. Why? Because Paro went early, Hashkem Abok went early to the Nile, in order to, as far as people knew, see to his own needs, but they knew that he identified himself with the Nile. He regarded himself as a god, he was worshipped as a god, and the Nile was also the god of the Egyptians, and the Nile was more or less identified with Paro himself. As is written in the prophets, it says that Ani Ori, I am my Nile, Vani Asitini, and I made myself. I'm a self-made God. I'm a self-made God together with the Nile. We rule Egypt. That's also why the plagues, they started from the Nile. So by the first plague, Dam, says Leichel Paro. So now I'm going to follow, let's just follow through the first plague all the way through. And the sources for this explanation is given right at the top. Malbim's Fon, Babin and Al-Shur. I bring many of the commentators and take them all together. We get a deep analysis of the significance of each plague. So Dam is the first one. The Nile itself, the god of the Egyptians, were being transformed into blood, the opposite, and will be the source of killings. For example, which blood represents. So it says, then what was the content of the warning? The warning was, Shalachet Ami v'yavduni. You have to let my people go, that they should serve me. Paro, you have to recognize that you can't just enslave my people. Because I've made a bond together with them. They are the people who are going to fulfill godliness in the world. So he said, you'll see that now we're transformed into blood to teach you Ki Ani Hashem. Now, we can say that this is really the main purpose of the plagues. This name of Hashem, Ki Ani Hashem. Also, we know last week's Parsha began with this. It says, Shmi Hashem lo nodati lahem. The beginnings of the people of Israel was with the forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And it said, I did not make known myself with the name of Hashem. Although the name of Hashem is mentioned right from the beginning of Bereshis. The first chapter only mentions Shem Elokim, but from the second chapter onwards, God is referred to either as Hashem Elokim or even sometimes Hashem alone. So what does it mean when it says I didn't make my name known? It was known. But as Rashi and Ramban and the others explain, what is the significance of these two basic names of God, Elohim and Hashem? So Elohim, and that's why the first chapter only uses that term, is the God of nature. The name Elohim, which is Chol, often used in a profane sense. It's used for people who are extremely powerful, like the judges are called Elohim, and very powerful people, because the word Aleph Lamed Hey is a reference to the powers, the natural powers that exist in the world, and human beings who have special natural powers. And also it's used Elohim Acherim, we're called strange gods, because nearly all the heathenism of ancient times was a worship of powerful aspects of nature, fertility, beauty, nature as it's shown in the environment around the human society, but also nature as it's shown in the human being was worshipped. The animals also represent different forces. They were part of Elohim Achirim. And as we explained yesterday, the main god in very many pantheons, that means temples of idols, in the ancient days, was the god of the sun, called Ra, the sun god. So, Hashem, however, means something else. And we can see it from the second chapter of Genesis, Bereshit, where the name Hashem is first mentioned. Hashem means that God is beyond time, space, matter, causality. That He is the power of absolute existence, who is beyond the relative existence of the whole of nature. The whole of nature, with all its powers, is still just a world of relativity. A world where you don't as yet recognize as an absolute power, which is above all these, which in fact constantly creates them. What is the source of Elohim? It's put very well in a famous midrash of a pasuk in Yeshaya, who says, lift up your eyes and see Mi vara eile hamutzi b'mitzpat tzva'am. Who created these powers of nature and who counts the hosts of heaven? Who's the one who's above the hosts of heaven? So it's like this, Mi vara eile. That if you study any aspect of nature and you analyze it, like many scientists have done for many thousands of years, especially in more modern times, and science is progressing at an enormous rate, we all ask the question, Ma Elo. What is the nature and how can we understand the different forms of nature? Ma, we ask the question Ma. But once you ask the question Mi vara eile, you are a human being who says, well, who created it? Who's the power behind everything? Then they say, you take the word Mi and eile, in reverse, it makes up Elohim. The people start asking, who's above everything? They say, well, there's a mind behind the universe. And the mind keeps on creating constantly, sometimes even not things that form a regular series of causality, which we do see within nature. But there's a power above nature that breaks causality, that breaks also the external shell, which we understand with our senses, with logic. It goes beyond logic, something on a high level. So then, this explains why the first chapter referred to Hashem as Elokim. The second chapter, as soon as the man is created, for the human being has got another faculty. Not only does he have five senses, and he has a brain superior to the brains of the other mammals in many ways, although animals also have a partial brain, but the human being has got something else, which only the human species has, and that's the divine image, Tselem Elokim. And the Tselem Elokim, Nishmat Chayim, that has in it a window to the soul and even window to Hashem. Because the Nishmat Chayim means the breath of Hashem. And that's mentioned first in the 26th verse of the first chapter, which is equivalent to the numerical value of the Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya is which is the power which is beyond nature, beyond causality, but the power of Hashem, who can change things, just like a human being has the power to change things. A human being can change himself from an animal to become almost like an angel. And that's the challenge of the human being. So, Paro, even though he knew about Elokim, it would appear, he had some knowledge of Elokim, and he even had heard, or maybe an experience from the time of Yosef HaTzadik and Yaakov Avinu, that the Jews believe that their invisible God is behind everything and can change anything at will. And that he was not ready to accept. He said, okay, you believe in a God, God of Israel, I believe in the God of Egypt, the Nile, and myself, the Pharaohs, and the Samsons might even reach the level of believing in Ra. I believe in the power of the sun that rules everything, ultimate king in the eyes of the ancient heathens. So, but that Ani Hashem, that we're not ready to accept. But when my God, the Nile, and myself is turned into blood, then I realize there's somebody who changes basic nature, who's above it. So the Makkah of Dam teaches that Hashem rules the world entirely. He rules the sun and the moon and the stars and the Nile and all human beings. And He's given human beings freedom to choose Him or to reject Him. Then we go on. So this explains parts of the warning, where it took place and through whom it took place. And in fact it says, Leisha al-Paro, go to him. It does not say Baboka, because this was a general teaching which will apply everywhere where the waters of the Nile would appear in the larger tracts which belonged to the Egyptian Empire. You'll find Ani Hashem. And whose staff produced the changeover from water to blood? It was Aaron. So the question is, why was it not Moshe? So the answer is, Aaron was a complete partner with Moshe in putting the plagues upon the Egyptians. He had a special staff also, with Shem Havaya on it. He could change. And the reason is also because since Moshe Rabbeinu was saved from the water, it didn't attack him, so therefore it was not good because of his birth, where he was destined to drown in the waters of the Nile, but the Nile would not accept him. Hashem saw to it, the daughter of Pharaoh saved him. So if he was saved, not right that he should go and bring a curse upon these waters. But Aaron was born before this decree took place, 3 years earlier. So he didn't have to be saved from those waters. And therefore this was given over to him. Now, the Egyptians, we know from Egyptian records, and it speaks about Chachamim, who are great scientists, as we know until today, from many remnants that have been left from their buildings, a very high level, astronomy and other sciences, architecture. And they're also called Khartoumim. There's a whole discussion, what is the significance of this term? The simplest explanation is that the Khartoumim, although it's got, some say it was a city even in Egypt called Khartoum, and that was a city where the priests and others had their training in magic and astrology and astronomy. But you need to ask what's the origin of this phrase. Some say it's connected with cheret, which means to engrave, because they were masters of the hieroglyphics. And the hieroglyphics was the language in which they wrote, and they were great scholars in all the different records that existed. And it's very interesting, just recently, with the progress of archaeological discoveries, there's a great Egyptologist in Canada who's discovered that the Khartoumim, through their regular language hieroglyphics, in that language, they also produced the first signs of the Hebrew alphabet, which is intermingled with it. So, somebody I saw recently a report of this. You look it up. So the Khartoumim, but probably the words Khartoumim are connected with Lacharot, which means with the tet, means to engrave. It's like in the Chumash, a bit later on, when we have the description of the tablets of stone on which were inscribed the Decalogue, the Aseret HaDibrot, it says Charut ala Ruchot. They were engraved on the tablets of stone. That's with the Tav, that's with the Tet. But we don't know in the rest of the Bible, also later, but with the Tet, it means also the grave things. And Charut, with the Tav, it's connected also to the concept of freedom. In other words, you're able to pierce the stone through the power of free man as freedom. So the sages say, Al tikva charut ala luchot, ela chirut ala luchot. That's where the sages say the engraving which goes right into the stone, and by the Aseret HaDibrot went all the way through, from one side of the stone to the other, and did not appear on the other side as mirror writing, but appeared straightforward writing on the other side, and also some of the letters which are entirely surrounding the space. So a letter which surrounds the space completely, if it's engraved all the way through the stone, comes out the other side, it should drop down. It didn't drop down. They say that the mem, the samach, the final mem, the samach, or letters which were like it, they didn't fall out. So we have the concept of engraving in Khartoumim. So the Khartoumim were also able to change water into blood. They could do the same thing. But there's one thing they couldn't really do. Because what happened? If a Jew wanted to drink water from the Nile, he could drink water. But in the Egyptian, any water they picked up was turned into blood. So there was a distinction between the Hebrews and the Egyptians. But so what happened next? It says, when this happened, what was the request of Pharaoh? Pharaoh said, I can see the Khatim can also do it. So therefore you're no better than they are. And you just prayed it should cease. And this first plague stopped. And as soon as it stopped, so Pharaoh hardened his heart. Says he hardened his own heart. In other words, he said, well, it stopped. We had this plague for a time. We could see the Egyptians can do it as well. So therefore you speak in the name of your God. Your God is not better than our God, because our gods, the gods of the Nile, with which I identify, I'm part of that Godhead, we're still powerful. So he hardened his heart. So, also, in which area did this plague come? Came through the waters on the earth. Now, you see the last column is levels of servitude. And this brings us back to the starting point, which we discussed yesterday, the 15th chapter of Genesis, where there's already a prediction of what will happen to the descendants of Avraham Avinu. And that's a good idea, we'll go back to that and look at the text inside. It says here, in Jerusalem Bible, page 14, first of all, the word of Hashem came to Avram in a vision saying, I'll protect you and your reward is very great. So Avram says, you promised that through me will bless all the families of the earth. So it says, Hashem, you promised this. But I'm childless. And the only person who might be able to follow me is the steward of my house, Eliezer from Damascus. So, although fine, but is this your promise to me? I understood from you we'll have children. And so he said, so he even said to Hashem, he said, behold, you haven't given me any seed. And the one who's born in my house is my only heir. Is that the way we can build up a nation? To spread your existence and your word in the world? Then the word of Hashem came to him saying, this one will not inherit you. Only the one who comes from your loins, he will be your heir. So it found it difficult to understand. How is it possible, my age, at Saul's age? So he brought him outside and said, look now towards the heavens and count the stars, if you're able to number them. So he said to him, Ko Yedarecha, thus will be your seed. So Hashem says, so Abraham believed in him. He says, Vayamen b'Hashem, he believed in Hashem. Vayamin b'Hashem. He developed strong faith in Hashem. And he counted to him for righteousness. This was the righteousness of Abraham, that he would put his trust in Hashem, he's going to have children with Sarah. And they will have further blessings, and from them and their seed will come the great nation. And then he said to him, Ani Hashem, I want to demonstrate. You should know that Hashem means the one who is above all nature and can change things. I took you out from Ur-Kasdim, Ur of the Chaldeans, which Ur also is the ancient name for fire, because you were thrown in a pit of fire, a furnace, and you were saved miraculously. So I took you out from there, and I took you out from that corrupt, idolatrous civilization to give you this land, the Ta'araz Dolusha. The ultimate aim is that you, your descendants, you will take this land into possession, the Rishta. So then he said, okay, you've promised us to have seed. Now you promise us this land. Can you give me a sign by Me'edaki Roshena? Then by what shall I know that I'll inherit it? What's the sign? So the way we already started learning this yesterday, that the question, was he really doubting the existence of this promise, whether it's going to become fulfilled? You can say no. He said what he wanted was, is there some way where I can help and pass on to whoever will inherit me in the future? What are the conditions which are needed to take into possession? How is it going to happen? They said to him, yes, there are certain conditions which have to be fulfilled so that you can really take possession of this land and thereby bring about the enormous blessing to all the families of the earth. So he said to him, take a heifer 3 years old, and a goat 3 years old, and a ram 3 years old, and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. He took them all these, and he cut them in the middle, and laid each half against the other. But the birds he didn't divide. They remained complete. And the eagle came down upon the carcasses, and Avram drove them away. Very cryptic vision he was given. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Avram. And lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. So Hashem said to Avram, know surely that your seed will be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall enslave them, and shall afflict them for 400 years. And that nation, whom they will serve, I will judge them. And afterwards they will come out with great substance. And you will go back to your fathers in peace. You will be buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation, they shall come back here to this land, for the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet full. And it came to pass, when the sun went down, it was dark, built a smoking furnace and a burning torch that passed between these pieces. In the same day, Hashem made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your seed have I given this land. I give it now to your seed. That means I give it now in principle. In practice, it will be your seed who will have it. But now you don't have any seed yet. He said, I've given it though, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Parat. The Keni, the Knizi, the Kadmoni, and the Chitin, the Prizi, and the Rephaim, the Amori, Kanani, and Girgashi, and Yebusi. 10 nations. Now, this is the most cryptic visions and prophecies which I find throughout the Bible. And it's actually the first prophecy given over in full to the father of the people of Israel, the father of monotheism. There were prophecies given to Noah, which I mentioned, to Adam, but still, this is a much deeper one. To explain every aspect of this, we don't have time now. But I'll just meanwhile mention one point which has to do with the Retzach Adash Ba'achab, the threefold division of the plagues. It's clear that it turns out, if you read on in Genesis and in the book of Exodus, that this land, which is not specified here, in which the seed of Abraham will be strangers, is the land of Egypt. And then it says there are three aspects to the suffering which Egyptians will put upon the seed of Abraham. It says that if there be 400 years, there will be strangers, the land that is not theirs. And it says that there will be strangers, the land is not theirs. That's all Galus. There'll be aliens. And then they shall enslave them. They'll be slaves, or they shall serve them. Serve them as slaves. They'll make them into slave workers. And then they will torture them 400 years. And at the end, the nation for whom they have to become slaves, I'll judge them. And then they'll go out with great substance. So some of the commentators, like Kliakar and Hirsch and others, this is the Dargut Shel Abdut, level of servitude. It's called Geirot. In other words, they were treated as strangers in their own land. The Egyptians, their whole environment and even their sustenance, their survival was dependent upon the Nile. And now the Nile became blood. They were strangers in their own land. So this is the level of strangers. That's the column before the last one. And of course, this first plague taught the major principle of the existence of Hashem, not just in nature, but above nature. So here we've gone through the first plague of the Tzach. Right. Time for one question. Yes.
What's the source for Aaron's staff? Because I thought only Moshe had a staff, and he got it originally from Yosef, and it was in stone. He pulled it out of stone like Excalibur.
Well, it's where did the Mate Aaron come from? It's also divine stuff. But there's quite a few midrashim about Mate Moshe and Mate Aaron. So for tomorrow, I'll bring some versions of the midrashim. Where did they come from, and what happened to them? But there's reference to Chumash, Mate Moshe and Mate Aaron. They both had a staff, which it's called Mate Elokim, so it probably had on it a name of Hashem.
I know Moshe's did.
Yes.
And it also had the name of all the plagues too.
Yes. Okay, well, they're different with Hashem. Okay.